Yo, what's up guys, I'm Yanick from the Producer School, and in this video I'm going to show you how to make minimal house like ANOTR, Stussy, Djoko and many more artists. Minimal house is a really pure form of house music, like how it sounded back in the days, and it's gaining more and more popularity again. In this video, I'm going to discuss all the important elements of a minimal house track, such as the kick, bass, drums, percussion, synths, vocals and more. And with that being said, let's not wait any longer and start with the video. All the samples, presets and even the project file from this video come from our latest pack, Devotion, which is the ultimate tech and minimal house producer pack containing serum presets, samples, vocals, project files and much more. And if you want to check out the pack and support the channel, then use the link in the description, which goes to our website theproducerschool.com, and any support is always appreciated. Let's start off with probably the most important thing of a track. It's the foundation of every house track, which is the kick. It has a very deep low end and not that much of attack. And that's something you want to look for when creating minimal house. You want really deep kicks with not that much of attack. So this one is just perfect. I created a 4/4 pattern in the piano roll, or actually the sequencer. I started this project all within one pattern, and then later on I split it into different parts. So that's why I'm working in the sequencer. Normally I would just drag all the samples right into the playlist instead of the sequencer. But for this track it was just really easy to do it like this. I removed a little bit of the attack with a transient processor, as you can see over here. So when I put it back up, you can hear that's getting more punch. So I dragged it down a little bit. Then there's another kick which plays like this. It's the same kick as the first one, but then I made it like really short over here in the sampler. So the quick fade out is all the way up to 100% and the length is also shorter. The short kick plays on the offbeat between the third and fourth kick. So you get a little bit more bounce. Once I had the kick ready, I started working on a bass line. The bass line on its own sounds like this. And then with the kick, it's a really funky and groovy bass line. But first let me show you what the bass consists of. There is a sub bass which sounds like this. And then there's a more like top layer for the bass. Really plucky. The sub bass is a preset from our Devotion pack. It's a bass that you can hear in a lot of tech and minimal house tracks. It's a filtered saw wave, and there is some processing going on. There's a camel crusher on it to add a little bit of distortion and compression, and with the EQ there are a little more high frequencies removed, because the other bass fills up the higher frequencies for the bass. And then there's a kickstart on it, just mix on 100% all the way up. So it doesn't clash with the kick. Then the plucky bass. There is some processing going on, like this EQ, which removes a lot of the low frequencies. And that's because the sub bass already has that frequencies in there, so it doesn't need the low end here. Then there's a fruity phaser on there, which adds a little bit of that phase effect. Gives it a little bit more funk. and a kickstart for sidechain. Now let me show you the MIDI of this bass. Let's go into the piano roll, and then it looks like this. As you can see, a lot of these notes are not on the grid, and that's what gives this bass line a lot of groove and bounce. Because when I put it right on the grid, it sounds like this. So you really miss that groove. I created this swing groove with the quantize option in FL Studio. It's when you press Alt plus Q, and I used the preset 16 machine swing to give it some nice groove. I also used the main swing slider over here in the channel rack, and this thing can bring up the swing of all the patterns that are in your track. For this pattern, it was not needed because the swing was already made in the MIDI. But for other things such as the percussion, it's a really useful tool, which I will also show you later on in this video. That's it for the bass. Let's move on with some drums. Let's start off with the claps, which sound like this. As you can see, there are two claps layered on top of each other. The first one sounds like this. Really snappy clap, and then there's a more of a 808 909 clap. There are some extra claps in between, as you can see over here. And I did this to make the track a little bit more interesting and have a little bit more things going on. The velocity of this clap is also a little bit lower than just a normal clap. And then at the end of the bar, the other clap is playing another rhythm as well. There is some processing going on. For instance, on this first clap, I removed a little bit of the low frequencies and boosted just a bit of the treble. And then they go into a buzz, which adds just a little bit of reverb. You can barely hear it, but it's adding a little bit of room to the claps. Then there's an open hat, just really simple, playing at every offbeat. And another open hat. Which is not playing exactly on the grid, but just a little bit off again to get that swing going on. Then there's a closed hat. Which is doing a lot for the groove of the track. Let me show you the pattern. It looks a bit like this. It's just one closed hat sample from the pack, and this is what the MIDI file looks like. Again, a lot of these hats are placed a little bit off the beat to get that swing again. I also changed up the pitch of some hats, like this one. It goes down a few semitones. And this one goes up. And if you look at the velocity, there's also some things going on. I just manually changed up the velocity for the head, so you get more humanized feel. And when the velocity goes high, I wanted to accentuate that part of the head. And another pattern that I want to show you is the percussion, which sounds like this on its own. As you can see, a bunch of random percussion shots. It's like 6 of them. This is the first one. I just picked a few of my favorite percussion from the pack that I thought would fit this minimal house track. Really short and glitchy ones. And we have this one. Bongo shot. Another one, which is more like a snare. And what I basically did, I just started messing around with placement of these different percussion. There's not one way to do this. It's basically trial and error. And I just came up with this pattern. Additionally, I added another shot over here. This one. Like a really deep sounding shot. Now let's move on to the synths. The first synth pattern that I want to show you sounds like this. And it's the main theme of the track. The pattern looks like this. There are 2 presets in there, both for Serum. This plucky sine synth. All these chords are playing variations on the F minor chord. As you can see over here, if I remove those 2 notes, I just have a basic F minor chord. I was just trying out and I started putting random notes on top of the chords until it sounded how I wanted it to sound. So this one is also an F minor chord, but then it's an inversion of it. So when I put the F note down, it's just a basic F minor chord. So I played around with the F minor chord a lot for this one as well. So this one is a higher octave. Really short. And then it goes up here. The second sound is a Rhodes piano, by the way. Both of these synths are being processed in a different way and then sent to a bus. The first one sounds like this without any effects. There's an EQ on it to remove some low frequencies and some highs as well. Then there's a little radiator, which is a preamp and adds a little bit of warmth to the sound. And also distorts it like a little bit. Some reverb. And a kickstart for sidechain. Then the second chord has also an EQ on it with a radio filter. And a kickstart for sidechain. So that's it for these chord steps. You can hear these chord steps in so many minimal house tracks, and I'm planning to do a more detailed video about it. So if you want to see that, drop a comment and I will try to cover that topic in another video. Some more synths like this pad, which is happening at the second part of the drop. Just to fill up some space in the spectrum. It's having some effects on there, like this EQ to remove a lot of low frequencies, Pan-O-Matic to make it pan to the left and right. And a kickstart for sidechain. Another synth that's basically there to fill up some space is this disco string sound. Which is playing the root note of the track, which is F, and it's a really easy preset, just a really high detuned saw wave, which will sound something like a string. Moving on to the effects, there is some vinyl noise playing. It's really low in volume, but you can hear this in like almost every minimal house track. Some vinyl noise layered underneath everything to give it that old school feeling. Then we have 2 downlifters. Also low in volume, but they just help with the impact of the drop. And then this more white noise. Also low in volume. At the end of every second bar, there is also a laser shot playing. It's really basic. Also works as a percussion. And the sound you can hear over here is a scratch sound that we made for the pack. It gives the track this really old school house feeling, almost like there's a real DJ scratching, and it helps with the transition between the first and second part of the drop. Some other effects that help with the transition, like this uplifter and snare fill. Like that. That's almost it for all the elements of the drop. The last sound that I want to show you is this guitar loop. Which is a really funky guitar loop that we created for this pack. There are some effects on there. Let me remove all of them. So first of all, we have an EQ to remove and boost some frequencies. Then there's an echo boy, which adds a little bit of a slap delay. Makes it a bit wider in the mix as well. A delay, which is not doing anything right now. And a reverb to give it some room. And as you can hear over here, the delay starts. And this last guitar note is another copy of the loop, which goes into a different mixer channel. This one has a delay on it that actually works. And a bigger reverb. As well as some kickstart, so it doesn't clash too much with the other elements of the drop. And I did this to make the transition into the drop a little bit smoother. And then it's also playing between the first and second part of the drop with some other shots as well. Just a really funky guitar loop that worked so well for this track. And that's it for the drop. I showed you all the elements that were in there. Now let me quickly go over the arrangement. All the elements of the drop are playing, but then placed in a different order. So first of all, we start with the kick, then a shorter kick, so it doesn't have all the low frequencies in there, and just a hi-hat playing here, not the full loop. And right now the full kick comes in with the open hat. Close hat is added as well. Now the bass. And now we head into the kind of breakdown slash build up. The synths are playing here, more in the background because there's reverb on it. And the disco string as well. Now there are some uplifters incoming. The kicker's moved, by the way. There's a snare coming. And then the guitar hits, followed by the drop. And now everything together. And that's it for the track of this video. If you have any questions about this video, then feel free to drop a comment and I will try to do my best and get back to you on there. For now, I want to thank you guys so much for watching and I hope to see you in another video.